Hey guys, tonight we dive into one of those myths that sounds almost too wild to be true, the birth of Pegasus, the famous winged horse who somehow came galloping into the ancient Greek imagination with a thunderbolt and a sea monster. Picture this, a lightning strike, the slithering form of the sea god's creatures, and then bam, a majestic horse with wings, soaring free from the strangest origins you could imagine. You probably won't survive this myth without a few chuckles at how the ancients spun these cosmic tales, but stick with me. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm always curious where we're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start in the shadowy, salt spray-scented depths where the sea god Poseidon, lord of horses and storms, had quite the temper and a complicated love life. His union with Medusa, that unfortunate Gorgon whose gaze could turn men to stone, sets the stage for a birth that's part magical, part monstrous. Medusa's story itself is a tragedy wrapped in serpents cursed by Athena after a scandalous encounter in her temple. Her hair transformed into writhing snakes and her visage made deadly to all who dared to look. Now, here's where things get really interesting. After the hero Perseus slays Medusa, more on him later, Pegasus bursts forth from her severed neck, born from the mingling of divine blood and mortal horror. This is no ordinary birth. It's a moment that blurs the lines between death and life, beauty and terror. Imagine the shock of the soldiers witnessing a horse with gleaming wings springing into the air amidst the chaos. Historians still argue whether Pegasus was originally a symbol of storm winds or a representation of the soul's ascent. But what's clear is that this myth captures a fascination with the mysterious and the sublime. This tale isn't just about a horse, it's about transformation and transcendence, themes that the Greeks love to weave into their stories. And speaking of transformation, did you know that in some ancient versions, Pegasus was born from the blood that spilled onto the sea, creating not just a horse, but the origin of the mighty hippocampi half-horse, half-fish creatures that pulled Poseidon's chariot? Now, that's a family reunion you wouldn't want to miss. So, as you imagine this winged steed taking its first flight, remember that Pegasus' birth wasn't just a flashy entrance, it was the start of a myth that would gallop through centuries of storytelling, inspiring artists, poets, and dreamers alike. You're now stepping into the chaotic aftermath of Medusa's defeat, where the skies still rumble with the echo of battle, and Pegasus is no longer just a newborn wonder, but a creature destined for greatness. The story goes that after bursting forth from Medusa's severed neck, Pegasus flew straight to Mount Helicon, the sacred home of the Muses, the goddesses of art, poetry, and inspiration. Here, he stamped his hooves, and from the ground sprang the Hippocrene Spring, a fountain of poetic inspiration, said to inspire even the dullest bard into creating masterpieces. Imagine the scene, a radiant, white-winged horse against the backdrop of rugged mountains, a symbol of divine creativity and untamed power. The Muses gather around, awestruck and eager to harness this new source of inspiration. It's like the ancient world's version of a rockstar debut, only this one breathes mythic fire and calls forth artistic genius. But Pegasus wasn't just a Muse's mascot. His story soon intertwines with the hero Bellerophon, a man whose ambition and hubris are the stuff of legend. Bellerophon dreamed of taming Pegasus, a feat that was as dangerous as it was noble. Mounting the winged horse wasn't just about a joyride, it was a quest to prove himself worthy of divine favor and mortal glory. The method of taming Pegasus, according to myth, the goddess Athena gifted Bellerophon a golden bridle, a magical tool that allowed him to control the wild creature. Picture Bellerophon, a young warrior clad in indigo and russet robes, cautiously approaching the magnificent beast by a shimmering spring, the golden bridle glinting in the sunlight. The tension is palpable. Will Pegasus accept this mortal rider, or will he buck and flee like a tempest? Historians still argue whether Bellerophon's taming of Pegasus is a symbolic tale of human mastery over nature or a cautionary allegory about overreaching ambition. Either way, it's a powerful story about the limits of human power when faced with divine forces. Here's a quirky tidbit. In some versions of the myth, Pegasus was so wild that Bellerophon had to climb on the horse's back without a saddle, or stirrups talk about bareback riding on a flying horse. Imagine trying that in a medieval tournament, and you're starting to get the scale of Bellerophon's daring. Once tamed, Pegasus carried Bellerophon on many adventures, including battles against fearsome creatures like the Chimera, a monstrous hybrid breathing fire. This partnership wasn't just about transportation. It was about the fusion of human courage and divine power, a theme that echoes through countless myths and legends. As you picture the soaring flights of Bellerophon and Pegasus across sunlit skies, remember that their story captures the eternal human desire to rise above earthly bounds, to harness wild forces, and to carve out a place in the annals of legend. Picture the dazzling moment when Bellerophon, atop Pegasus, confronts the Chimera, a terrifying beast with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent, spewing fire and terror across the land. The landscape is scorched earth and smoke, under a blazing sun that makes the heat unbearable even from afar. This fiery creature embodies chaos and destruction, a perfect foil for the heroic winged duo. You follow Bellerophon as he navigates the air currents, weaving through clouds in his teal and saffron armor, his grip tight on the golden bridle shimmering against Pegasus's pure white feathers. The tension between mortal and divine is thick. One wrong move could send both crashing to the ground. It's like an ancient aerial dogfight before airplanes, only with mythical fire and fury. Historians still debate whether the Chimera is an actual beast from PI Greek folklore or a symbolic representation of natural disasters like volcanoes and earthquakes. Either way, this battle isn't just a fight against a monster. It's a mythic tale of conquering fearsome, uncontrollable forces threatening society's order. The story takes an interesting turn with Bellerophon's use of a clever tactic. He flies high above the Chimera, out of reach of its fiery breath, and then plunges downward to strike the creature's vulnerable parts. Pegasus's speed and agility are crucial here, transforming the horse from mere transport into a battle partner. Imagine the force of the descent, the rush of wind, and the crack of a spear against scaled hide. A quirky note. Some versions say Bellerophon used lead-tipped spears that melted in the Chimera's fire, flogging its throat, and ending the terror classic mythic, use the environment to your advantage strategy. It's the ancient equivalent of a cheat code in a video game. The battle isn't just about brute strength, it's about courage, wit, and divine assistance. It underlines an important theme in Greek mythology. Mortal success often hinges on cooperation with the gods and the favor of fate, not just physical prowess. As the Chimera falls, the land breathes again, and Pegasus carries Bellerophon back, a triumphant symbol of victory. But this victory comes with a price. Bellerophon's growing pride soon leads to tragic consequences. His next venture will test not just his courage, but his very humanity. So, as you picture that sunlit sky filled with the echoes of clashing fire and steel, remember that mythic battles like this once served ancient societies as lessons on balance between bravery and humility, power and responsibility. Now imagine Bellerophon back on solid ground, hailed as a hero by his people, his fame spreading like wildfire across Greece. Statues might not have been erected just yet, but if they had, you'd picture him standing tall in indigo and russet robes, a laurel wreath crowning his brow, Pegasus patiently beside him, its feathers still gleaming from the battle. But fame can be a double-edged sword. While Bellerophon basks in glory, an unsettling shadow creeps into his story hubris, that classic Greek curse. Remember, pride before the fall isn't just a catchy phrase, it's practically a character in every myth. After the Chimera, Bellerophon starts to believe he's almost divine himself, the perfect blend of mortal and godly favor. Historians still argue whether this part of the tale was meant as a moral lesson about humility or a political commentary on leaders who overreach. Either way, it's a reminder that Greek myths were not just bedtime stories. They were cautionary tales with bite. In a bold but reckless move, Bellerophon tries to fly Pegasus all the way to Mount Olympus, the god's exclusive hangout spot. It's like crashing the ultimate celestial party uninvited. Picture the scene: clouds swirling ominously, lightning flickering as Bellerophon soars upward, determination etched on his face, oblivious to the brewing divine backlash. The gods, naturally, are less than thrilled. Zeus, known for his quick temper and lightning bolts, sends a gadfly to sting Pegasus mid-flight. The horse bucks wildly, wings beating in panic, tossing Bellerophon off his back. The fall from such heights is catastrophic. Greek mythology doesn't do safe landings here. This fall symbolizes the harsh reality that mortals cannot transcend their human limits, no matter how much divine help they receive. It's a cosmic slap on the wrist, reminding us that some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. Even Pegasus, the symbol of inspiration and freedom, cannot save Bellerophon from his fatal pride. A quirky tidbit: some sources suggest Bellerophon survived the fall, but lived out his days wandering as a lonely, broken man, a tragic figure reduced from hero to outcast. This descent from grace has echoes in later tales, showing how ancient myths influenced storytelling across cultures. So as you picture that dramatic flight toward the heavens, followed by the perilous plunge back to earth, think about how myth captures the delicate dance between aspiration and limitation, something every one of us faces, even if it's just trying to get out of bed on a Monday morning. After Bellerophon's fall, the story shifts focus back to Pegasus, the winged horse who, despite the chaos, remains a symbol of pure, untamed inspiration. Picture Pegasus in a tranquil meadow beneath a harvest sun, feathers shimmering in the golden light, unburdened by mortal folly. While Bellerophon struggles with his fate, Pegasus is free to continue soaring across the skies, an eternal emblem of creative spirit and poetic muse. Pegasus doesn't just vanish into the clouds, though. According to legend, the winged horse found a new purpose, carrying Zeus' thunderbolts. Imagine Pegasus, now tamed by the king of gods, dashing through stormy skies, hooves striking clouds like thunderclaps, lightning trailing behind. It's a wild image of raw power harnessed for divine, with a stark contrast to the mortal ambitions of Bellerophon. Here's a fun medieval illumination moment for you. Envision Pegasus framed by delicate gilded flourishes, poised mid-flight with his mane and wings detailed in soft tempera blues and silvers, set against a parchment background flecked with tiny stars. The flat perspective highlights his majesty without illusionistic depth, making him seem both larger than life and intimately accessible. Historians still argue about whether Pegasus was originally a purely poetic symbol, or if earlier myths might have assigned him more practical roles in ritual or natural phenomena, like the bursting forth of springs. The spring of Hippocrene on Mount Helicon, said to be created by Pegasus' hoof, is an example of how mythology blends inspiration with the physical world. Pegasus' enduring legacy is fascinating because he transcends his mythological origin to become a universal icon. Over centuries, he's appeared on coats of arms, in Renaissance art, and even as a modern logo, proof that myths evolve and continue to inspire long after their original telling. So, as you imagine Pegasus, not just a mount, but a force of nature and creativity, let yourself feel the freedom in his flight, the endless possibility that comes from harnessing imagination, even when mortal lives falter. Now, picture yourself following the trail Pegasus left behind the bubbling spring of Hippocrene on Mount Helicon, a sacred place where poets and muses were believed to gather. This spring wasn't just a pretty myth. It was a real spot revered in ancient Greece as a source of poetic inspiration. You can almost hear the gentle trickle of water, smell the crisp mountain air mixed with wild herbs, and see tiny wildflowers nodding in the breeze under a soft harvest sun. The story goes that when Pegasus struck his hoof to the rocky earth, this magical spring burst forth, creating a physical link between the divine and the mortal realm. The Hippocrene Spring became a pilgrimage site for poets seeking the favor of the Muses, those enchanting goddesses who presided over art, music, and creativity. Imagine the scene: cloaked poets and musicians in indigo and russet robes gathering by the spring, quills in hand, waiting for inspiration to flow as freely as the water. Medieval illuminations might show this with a limited flat perspective, where the spring gushes from the earth framed by delicate golden vines and tiny gilded stars. The Muses hover nearby, each holding their traditional props: a lyre, scrolls, or masks rendered in tempera with soft teal and saffron accents that contrast with the natural greens and browns of the landscape. Historians still debate whether the Hippocrene Spring was a real natural spring that inspired the myth, or a purely poetic invention. Some suggest it might have been a sacred site even before Pegasus' tale, linked to older earth and water deities. This connection between Pegasus and the Muses highlights the deep intertwining of myth, nature, and human creativity in Greek culture. Pegasus isn't just a wild horse. He's a bridge from the heavens to the earthly arts, a symbol that creativity flows from divine sources but is realized in the human world. So, as you picture that mountain spring, think about how inspiration can strike suddenly, like a hoof hitting the earth, and how moments of pure creativity are both mysterious and magical, even if you're just scribbling ideas by the light of a screen at midnight. Imagine now the lofty heights of Mount Olympus, home of the Greek gods, a place that's as grand as it is unreachable, shrouded in clouds and shimmering with gold. Here, in a celestial palace of marble and amber, the gods hold council and watch over the mortal world below. It's the kind of place where you'd expect the very air to sparkle with divine energy, and the whispers of fate to echo like the soft rustling of silk robes. In this particular moment, Zeus, king of the gods, is facing a dilemma that only he could cause. After the dramatic birth of Pegasus from Medusa's neck, this mighty winged horse has caught his eye. Zeus decides to harness Pegasus' power for his own purposes, tasking the winged steed with carrying his thunderbolts. Imagine the scene as Pegasus spreads his vast wings, feathers shimmering in russet and indigo, poised to soar from the temple's golden steps, the air heavy with anticipation. The court of the gods surrounds Zeus, Hera, Athena, and Apollo in saffron and teal robes, each with their iconic symbols: a peacock's feather, a spear, a golden lyre. The scene is rendered with delicate brown ink outlines and gilded flourishes framing the godly assembly, capturing both their majesty and their very human quarrels, their immortality tinged with personality quirks. Historians still argue about how literal the Greeks saw their gods' interactions with these tales, meant as straightforward narratives, or allegories for natural forces and human psychology. Regardless, the image of Pegasus as a divine courier or thunderbolt bearer underscores his elevated status, not merely a mythical creature, but an essential participant in the cosmic order. This moment also symbolizes the mingling of chaos and control. Pegasus, born of a monstrous being yet tamed by Zeus for a vital cosmic role. It's a reminder that even wild, untamed forces can be brought into service for order and power, a theme that resonates deeply in many cultures beyond ancient Greece. So, picture that powerful winged horse, soaring between heaven and earth, not just a symbol of freedom, but a tool wielded by the greatest power in mythology, reminding us that even the wildest spirits have a place in the grand design. Now, let's drift down from Olympus to the rugged, windswept cliffs near the edge of the ancient world, the very landscape where Pegasus first made his majestic appearance. Imagine the sea crashing against jagged rocks, the scent of salt mingling with wild thyme and the distant calls of seabirds. It's a place of raw natural power, wild and untamed, fitting for the birth of a creature that embodies both strength and freedom. Here, Perseus, the hero fresh from his terrifying encounter with Medusa, stands gazing out over the tumultuous waters, his bronze armor gleaming faintly in the dawn light. His expression is a mix of awe and bewilderment, because from the blood of the fallen Gorgon has sprung a winged horse. This creature is unlike any he has seen, white as the foam on the waves, with wings that seem to catch the first rays of sunlight and scatter them like stars. Nearby, the gentle rustling of olive branches contrasts with the harshness of the cliffs, while small wicker baskets and leather satchels, left by Perseus' companions, hint at the mundane realities even heroes must face. The setting is captured in tempera and shell gold, with delicate brown ink outlining the sharp edges of rocks and the soft feathers of Pegasus. Tiny gilded flourishes trace the light glinting on the sea. This moment captures the paradox of Pegasus' origin, born from death and chaos, yet embodying grace and hope. It reminds us that great beauty and power often emerge from the most unlikely, even grim circumstances. Historians still debate whether Pegasus was always envisioned as a horse or if he evolved from earlier symbols of divine mobility, perhaps reflecting horses used in ancient rituals or celestial chariots. But his sudden appearance, soaring from the edge of the world, serves as a powerful metaphor for new beginnings born from the shadows of destruction. As you picture Perseus and Pegasus on that windswept cliff, feel the wild energy of the sea and sky merging with myth, a timeless moment where the mortal and divine worlds brush against each other, leaving a mark on history and imagination. Pegasus' first flight is a spectacle unlike any other. Picture the vast sky above the rugged cliffs, painted in deep blues and soft purples of early dawn, where the first golden streaks of sunlight stretch across the heavens. The winged horse unfurls his enormous, feathered wings with a graceful power that seems to suspend time itself. You can almost hear the soft rustle of feathers mingling with the morning breeze, a whispering hymn to freedom and flight. As Pegasus lifts off, the wind catches his mane, rippling like silk dyed in the palest white, and his hooves barely graze the tops of ancient olive trees clustered at the cliff's edge. Below, Perseus watches, his armor catching glints of the emerging sun, a mix of pride and wonder on his weathered face. The background hints at a medieval interpretation of the natural world flood perspective, delicate parchment texture, and tiny gilded flourishes tracing the outlines of clouds and the shimmering sea far below. This moment is more than just a flight. It's the birth of a legend soaring beyond earthly bounds, a symbol of inspiration and transcendence that has captivated storytellers for millennia. It's like watching the first flicker of a flame that promises light, but also the risk of burning too bright. A quirky historical tidbit. Some ancient sources suggest that Pegasus was associated not just with heroic journeys, but with fountains and springs, tying his flight to the very life-giving waters of the earth. He wasn't just a beast of war or speed. He was a bringer of creative inspiration and fresh beginnings. Historians still argue whether Pegasus' role as a muse figure evolved from earlier horse deities, or was a unique creation tied specifically to the Perseus myth. Either way, his flight embodies a perfect blend of strength and grace, a paradox that enchants both artists and warriors alike. As you imagine Pegasus slicing through the crisp dawn air, feel a gentle lifting inside yourself, the beginning of a journey that will take us through wild myths, daring heroes, and the mysterious origins of one of Greece's most beloved creatures. Imagine the scene shifting to the aftermath of Pegasus' majestic flight, Perseus standing beneath the sprawling branches of a sacred grove, the cool shade filtering down like scattered emerald light on his armor. Around him, the world seems paused, holding its breath as if the earth itself is in awe of what just transpired. The horse, now grounded, nuzzles Perseus with a gentle intelligence in his eyes, an ancient wisdom sparkling like a hidden gem. You feel the rough bark of the olive trees under your fingertips, and the faint scent of wild thyme carried on a warm breeze, grounding this magical moment in the real world. Nearby, a small wooden bucket and an iron fire tongue rest against a stone altar, humble props hinting at the sacred rites performed here, rituals blending old beliefs with the new legends woven by mortal hands. This quiet connection between man and beast captures the fragile balance of trust and power, a silent pact forged in the midst of chaos and divine intervention. It's the calm after the storm, a brief pause that invites reflection on the intertwining of fate, courage, and friendship. A fascinating, if slightly odd fact. Pegasus was sometimes linked to the Muses, the goddesses of inspiration, believed to have struck the ground with his hoof to create the Hippocrene Spring on Mount Helicon, a fountain that poets swore by for their creative sparks. Scholars still debate whether this association with fountains came before or after Pegasus myth became popular, illustrating how stories evolve and layer meanings over centuries, much like the way a single river can carve many paths through the landscape. As you sit with Perseus and Pegasus in this sacred grove, you begin to grasp that legends are not just tales to be told, they are moments frozen in time, charged with the power to inspire, transform, and endure far beyond their origins. You follow Perseus and Pegasus as they set off from the quiet grove, stepping into the bright blaze of a Mediterranean morning. The sunlight warms the polished bronze of Perseus' sword and the sleek coat of Pegasus, whose wings beat with a soft, rhythmic thrum, like a heartbeat echoing through the sky. The air is crisp and carries the scent of pine and salt from the nearby sea, reminding you that their journey is both grounded and boundless. The landscape stretches out beneath them, rolling hills dotted with olive groves, the ancient ruins of temples silhouetted against the rising sun, and narrow paths winding like ribbons through the wildflowers. It's a world steeped in history and myth, where the mundane and the magical blur into one another. Perseus, mounted on his winged steed, looks like a figure carved from legend itself, russet cloak billowing, indigo tunic catching the wind, and a determined gleam in his eyes. The journey ahead promises challenges not just of strength, but of wit and heart. Interestingly, ancient depictions of Pegasus vary widely, sometimes as a pure white steed, other times with golden or even black wings, highlighting the flexible nature of mythic symbolism. Some scholars suggest this variation reflects regional differences or evolving cultural values, much like how fairy tales morph across generations. Historians still argue whether Pegasus began as a divine symbol of poetic inspiration or as a warrior's companion embodying speed and victory, showing how myths often serve multiple roles simultaneously. As Pegasus soars over the countryside, you realize that this flight is more than just a means of travel. It's a metaphor for transcendence, the ascent from mortal struggles towards something greater, a blend of freedom, destiny, and the unyielding pursuit of greatness. The wind whistles softly as Pegasus carries you over a sparkling river that threads through a sun-dappled valley. The water glints like scattered jewels, reflecting the saffron and teal hues of the morning sky. Below, fishermen in simple tunics row wooden boats woven with wicker baskets, their nets cast wide in hopes of a good catch. The smell of fresh fish mingles with wild thyme, and the faint hint of smoke from village hearths a scent that feels oddly comforting, like a warm blanket on a chilly night. Perseus leans forward, scanning the land ahead with sharp eyes, his russet cloak flickering in the breeze. His grip tightens on the bronze hilt of his sword, a symbol not only of martial might, but of the immense responsibility he bears. Every hero's journey carries the weight of the world on their shoulders, even if they try to hide it behind bold gestures and bright armor. Here, in this tranquil moment, you catch the quieter side of myth, the everyday life that pulses beneath the grandeur. A boy runs alongside a dusty road, chasing a wooden hoop, while a woman balances a wooden bucket on her head, her teal dress brushing the tall grasses. These small scenes remind you that mythic stories aren't just about gods and monsters, they are reflections of human experience, colored with imagination. Curiously, ancient storytellers often included such pastoral details, grounding their tales in recognizable settings, so listeners could connect more deeply. It's a technique that persists even today, proving that blending the extraordinary with the ordinary is timeless. Historians still debate whether the settings of these myths were actual places known to ancient Greeks or entirely imagined realms meant to evoke universal truths and mystery as enduring as the myths themselves. As Pegasus dips low, skimming the river's edge, you sense that every flight, every glance below, is part of a larger dance between earth and sky, mortal and divine, reality and myth. You follow Pegasus as he ascends toward the jagged cliffs of Mount Helicon, where the air grows cooler and carries the faint scent of pine and wildflowers. The mountain is steep, its rocky face a tapestry of russet and ochre, flecked with patches of moss and tiny blossoms clinging stubbornly to crevices. Here, The Muses are said to sing 9 goddesses of inspiration who breathe life into poetry, music, and art. The idea that creative genius comes from divine sources is still alive today, echoing in our own beliefs about inspiration. Perseus settles into a thoughtful silence, his gaze fixed on the mountaintop. This is no ordinary place, it's where mortals and immortals meet, where the boundaries between the human world and the divine blur like the soft edges of a dream. The legend says the Muses dwell in a cave illuminated by an eternal flame, their voices weaving spells of creativity that can ignite the soul. You notice small, deliberate details: a wooden lyre resting against a moss-covered stone, an iron fire tongue lying forgotten beside a flickering brazier. These objects whisper of the countless rituals performed here, the prayers offered, the art created in hopes of capturing fleeting glimpses of the divine. Yet, even as this mountain holds such magical promise, it's also a place of challenge. The climb is treacherous, the path narrow and winding, a metaphor for the difficult journey artists and leaders alike must undertake to reach true insight. Perseus' boots kick up loose stones, reminding you that even heroes stumble. Historians still argue whether Mount Helicon was a real pilgrimage site, or a purely mythical symbol, an eternal muse inspiring human creativity from afar. As Pegasus lands lightly near the cave's entrance, you sense the weight of history and myth converging, inviting you to listen closely to the stories whispered on the wind. The Cave of the Muses beckons, its mouth a shadowed arch framed by twisting ivy and delicate wildflowers, glowing faintly under the gentle touch of dawn's early light. You step inside, feeling the cool hush that wraps around you like a velvet cloak, broken only by the soft drip of water echoing in the stillness. Inside, the air smells faintly of beeswax and crushed herbs, subtle signs of ancient offerings made to these goddesses of inspiration. The walls shimmer softly, dusted with flecks of shell gold that catch the light, as if the cave itself is alive with magic. In the dim glow, 9 figures emerge, each a muse, radiating a quiet power. Clio, the muse of history, holds a scroll etched with forgotten tales, while Calliope, the muse of epic poetry, clutches a stylus and tablet, her eyes reflecting the story she's told 1,000 times. Their archaic robes ripple with colors like indigo, saffron, and teal, embroidered with tiny gilded flourishes that seem to dance in the candlelight. You watch as Pegasus, majestic and serene, lowers his head respectfully before them. This meeting between winged horse and divine inspirers symbolizes the fusion of earthly effort and celestial spark, a reminder that creativity requires both passion and grace. Ancient artists believed that only by receiving this divine favor could a mortal truly create work that transcends time. Yet the scene carries a quiet tension. The Muses' serene faces hint at the weight of responsibility. Each gift of inspiration comes with a demand for discipline, for balance between wild imagination and structured craft. You notice an iron fire tongue resting nearby, a symbol of the fire that must be carefully tended, lest it consume the creator. Scholars still debate whether the Muses were originally local nymphs adapted into Greek religion or timeless archetypes woven into myth to explain human creativity. As Pegasus stands ready to take flight once more, you feel the pull of these ancient stories, urging you to remember that every burst of brilliance comes from both mortal effort and something otherworldly. You emerge from the cave into the blinding sunlight of a rocky ridge, overlooking a sweeping valley dotted with olive groves and distant villages. The air is fragrant with thyme and wild oregano, and the soft hum of bees drifts lazily on the warm breeze. Here, Pegasus prepares to take flight, his powerful wings unfolding like great sails dyed in deep russet and white, the edges gilded with delicate gold leaf that catches the sun's rays. Around him, you notice a small troop of shepherds dressed in indigo and saffron tunics, their faces weathered and serene as they watch the magnificent creature with awe. One holds a wicker basket filled with freshly baked bread, another tends to a wooden bucket of goat's milk. The pastoral scene contrasts sharply with the mythic grandeur of Pegasus, grounding the tale in the everyday life of ancient Greece. As Pegasus leaps into the air, the earth seems to hold its breath. His ascent is not just a flight, but a symbol, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. His wings beat with rhythmic grace, a dance of power and beauty, carrying him above mountains and rivers, past temples and ruins that whisper forgotten secrets. The moment captures the ancient Greek ideal of Kalligathia, the harmony of beauty and goodness embodied in this celestial horse who soars between realms. Yet there is also a hint of melancholy. Pegasus' flight foreshadows his role as both a bringer of inspiration and a restless spirit, unable to stay bound to any one place. Interestingly, some ancient vase paintings depict Pegasus with a slightly different appearance, with feathers in unusual colors, suggesting that his image evolved over time as stories spread and changed. Historians still argue whether Pegasus originated as a purely mythological figure or had roots in earlier Near Eastern winged horse motifs. As you watch him fade into the horizon, you sense that Pegasus carries not just the hopes of heroes, but the eternal struggle to rise above limitations, an image that still resonates today. The wind whips softly through the branches of an ancient olive grove as you follow the path of Pegasus, now soaring high above the rugged hills. Beneath you, the countryside unfurls like a richly embroidered tapestry in shades of russet and deep green, stitched with the silvery glimmer of olive leaves. The scent of crushed herbs fills the air, mingling with the distant sound of lyres and flutes from a nearby village festival. Below Pegasus, you catch a glimpse of a modest temple dedicated to Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. Its marble columns gleam faintly in the afternoon sun, their capitals delicately carved with tiny gilded olive branches. Here, the sacred meets the mortal, reminding you that even the most divine beings find their roots in human reverence and ritual. Pegasus descends towards the temple's altar, where a young priestess dressed in saffron and teal robes offers libations of honeyed wine and fragrant oils. Her hands move in a ritual dance, her gestures precise yet fluid, echoing the same rhythm you saw in Pegasus' wingbeats. The scene hums with a quiet intensity, a moment where art and worship entwine. The temple's walls bear frescoes of heroes riding winged steeds into battle, symbols of divine favor and mortal courage. These images, though faded by time, speak to the ancient belief that Pegasus was not just a creature of myth, but a harbinger of victory and inspiration, a living bridge between Earth and Olympus. Interestingly, some scholars suggest that the cult of Pegasus may have included rituals involving real horses, adorned with feathers and painted symbols, blending myth and reality in ways that are still debated today. Was Pegasus merely a legend, or did his story grow from earthly celebrations of equine grace and strength? As Pegasus settles near the altar, his eyes gleaming like polished amber, you feel the pulse of ancient Greece, its love of beauty, bravery, and the endless quest to touch the divine through earthly acts. You find yourself standing in the heart of a bustling agora, the sun dipping low to cast long shadows over the marble and sandstone buildings. The air is alive with the chatter of merchants hawking their wares, the clink of coins, and the occasional brave donkeys laden with olive baskets. Among this human clamor, Pegasus rests nearby, a stark contrast, majestic and serene, his wings folded like a cathedral's stained glass window. This marketplace, vibrant and earthy, is where the mortal world converges with myth. Here, tales of Pegasus are whispered between tradesmen and travelers, the winged horse a symbol of hope, freedom, and poetic inspiration. You watch as a young bard strums a lyre, singing verses that tell of Pegasus' daring deeds and his bond with the hero Bellerophon. The agora itself is adorned with statues and reliefs depicting mythic scenes. One particularly striking sculpture shows Pegasus rearing on his hind legs, his wings spread wide, as Bellerophon prepares to mount him. The delicate lines and tiny gold leaf accents on the sculpture's mane shimmer in the fading sunlight, bringing the story to life in a tangible form. Historians still argue whether these artistic portrayals were inspired by actual horses or purely mythic imagination, but one thing is clear. Pegasus was more than just a story, he was a cultural icon shaping the identity of the Greeks. Nearby, a group of children play with wooden toy horses, their laughter mingling with the sound of flutes and the scent of freshly baked bread. Their innocent joy reminds you that myths like Pegasus are not only about gods and heroes, but also about inspiring wonder in every generation. As twilight deepens, you feel the pulse of this ancient world, a place where legend and daily life are inseparable. and where Pegasus continues to inspire dreams of flight and freedom. Night falls like a velvet cloak over the agora, and the flicker of oil lamps casts a soft golden glow on the faces of those who linger. The stories of Pegasus have taken on a new life in this dim light, whispered in hushed tones by travelers seated around crackling fires. You settle near one such group, listening as an elder with a voice like gravel recounts the tale of Pegasus' final fate. According to legend, after many adventures, Pegasus was granted a place among the stars by Zeus himself, becoming a constellation that shines bright in the northern sky. The horse who once carried heroes now carries the hopes of countless dreamers, eternalized in the heavens. As you gaze upward, the night sky is a canvas dotted with twinkling lights, the great square of Pegasus glowing proudly amidst the constellations. It's fascinating to consider that the ancient Greeks, without telescopes or space travel, mapped their stories onto the stars, blending myth with observation. Historians still argue whether the constellation was named after the horse or if the story evolved around the stars. But either way, Pegasus' celestial presence is undeniable. Nearby, the scent of pine and distant sea salt mingles with the smoke of burning wood, grounding this cosmic tale in the earthiness of the Mediterranean night. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves as if carrying Pegasus' wings across the sky. You imagine the horse galloping among the stars, who's striking the firmament, creating the Milky Trail we call the Milky Way. As your eyes drift between the faces of the storytellers and the shimmering stars above, you're reminded that myths like Pegasus serve as bridges connecting us to the ancient past and to the vast, mysterious universe. They are timeless, reminding us that even in the darkest nights, stories can light the way. The first rays of dawn slip quietly over the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold as you find yourself wandering near the sacred spring of Hippocrene on Mount Helicon. This spring, the fabled birthplace of poetic inspiration, was said to have been created by none other than Pegasus himself, striking the earth with his powerful hooves. The cool, clear water bubbles up amidst wildflowers and ancient stones, inviting poets and dreamers alike to drink and seek the muses. You dip your fingers into the chilly water, feeling a connection to the countless artists who came before you, hoping to channel some divine creativity. This place has been a wellspring not only of physical water, but of endless inspiration for centuries. There's even a quirky tale whispered among locals that those who drink from Hippocrene in the early morning gain the ability to speak in riddles for the rest of the day, much to the confusion of friends and family. Historians still argue whether Hippocrene was truly linked to Pegasus, or if it was simply a natural spring that later acquired mythic significance. Regardless, the symbolism is clear. The horse of the gods is not just a figure of brute strength, but one of profound artistic power, bridging the earthly and the divine. Around you, the scent of wild thyme and the distant call of a nightingale create a serene backdrop, while the gentle rustling of olive trees whispers stories older than time. You imagine Pegasus, white as snow and radiant with energy, pouring the earth to release this sacred stream, a lasting gift to the world of poetry and imagination. As the sun climbs higher, casting dappled light across the rugged landscape, you carry with you the sense that Pegasus is not merely a creature of myth, but a symbol of the eternal dance between creativity and the natural world, inspiring hearts through the ages. The air is thick with the scent of blooming laurel and wild oregano as you step into the bustling agora of ancient Corinth, a city where commerce, politics, and mythology intertwine like the threads of a finely woven tapestry. Here, stories of Pegasus are told not just in hushed reverence, but with lively debates among merchants, philosophers, and traveling bards. You find yourself drawn to a group gathered around a storyteller whose voice rises and falls like the sea waves beyond the city walls. He recounts the tale of Bellerophon's daring quest to tame Pegasus, a feat that required more than brute force. Only the gift of a golden bridle from the goddess Athena could harness the wild spirit of the winged horse. The crowd is captivated by the drama of man and beast united, soaring above earthly troubles and fears. You notice the bright colors of their garments: indigo, saffron, and russet fluttering in the breeze. the vibrant life of the city mirrored in the story's energy. Nearby, a merchant sets out small woven baskets filled with fragrant figs and olives, offering them to listeners as tokens of hospitality, while an old woman, her hands weathered like the parchment of ancient manuscripts, quietly sips from a wooden cup, her eyes reflecting the firelight and centuries of storytelling tradition. Historians still argue whether Bellerophon's story was a metaphor for human ambition or an allegory for mastering one's inner wildness. Regardless, the legend of Pegasus here embodies the timeless struggle between restraint and freedom, a theme as relevant today as it was in those lively Corinthian squares. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows over the marble columns and cobblestones, you feel the pulse of a culture that revered myth, not just as entertainment, but as a guide through life's complexities, where Pegasus soars as a beacon of hope and the endless possibilities of the human spirit. The dusk settles softly over the rugged cliffs of Mount Helicon, where the Muses were said to inspire poets and artists. Here, under a tapestry of stars beginning to twinkle faintly, you imagine Pegasus pausing after his celestial flight, his breath misting in the cool night air. The mountain's silence is profound, broken only by the distant murmur of a brook winding through olive groves, a place where myth and nature converge in perfect harmony. You picture the great winged horse, his coat gleaming pearly white against the darkening sky, wings spread wide like the sails of a ship about to embark on a voyage. The nearby laurel trees, sacred to Apollo, rustle gently as if whispering secrets of divine inspiration to anyone patient enough to listen. It's said that where Pegasus touched the earth, a spring burst forth Hippocrene, the fountain of poetic inspiration. A lone shepherd watches the night unfold, his rustic wooden staff resting beside him, and his cloak dyed deep indigo blending with the twilight. His thoughts drift to the stories passed down through generations, stories that mix the sacred and the everyday. He hums a tune, a soft melody carried on the wind, a lullaby for the mountains. Interestingly, scholars debate whether the story of Hippocrene was an ancient metaphor for the creative spark or a literal divine gift. Whatever the truth, the fountain remains a symbol of artistic awakening, where inspiration flows as freely as the waters. As you close your eyes, the tranquil scene lulls you deeper into reflection. The wild majesty of Pegasus, the serene power of the Muses, and the quiet pulse of nature all blending into a timeless dance of myth and meaning. Here, in the shadow of the gods, creativity is born anew, waiting for the dreamer to take flight. You find yourself standing on the windswept plains near the ancient city of Corinth, where Pegasus's legend takes a curious turn. The air is crisp, scented faintly with thyme and wild rosemary, and the sun dips low, casting elongated shadows over the ruins of temples long crumbled. Here, the story tells us, Pegasus served not just as a symbol of inspiration, but as a companion to the heroic Bellerophon, the young warrior destined to face the dreaded Chimera. Imagine Bellerophon, clad in bronze armor dulled by battle, mounted atop Pegasus's muscular back, their bond forged in fire and flight. The horse's mighty wings beat against the evening breeze, stirring dust and loose stones into swirling eddies as they prepare to confront the monstrous Chimera, a fiery beast with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. This hybrid terror had plagued the lands, and it was Bellerophon's fate to bring it down. Nearby, the gathered townsfolk hold their breath, clutching wooden talismans and offerings, hoping for divine favor. Among them, a young girl with a basket of olives watches intently, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. The scene captures the tension between mortal courage and divine intervention, a motif repeated throughout Greek myth. Historians still argue whether Bellerophon's tale is a heroic allegory for conquering nature's chaos, or a dramatized legend meant to inspire civic pride in Corinth. The blending of myth and historical memory remains as mysterious as the Chimera's fiery breath. As darkness falls, you feel the pulse of an ancient story beating strong. The soaring Pegasus, the brave warrior, and the fiery monster, all entwined in a timeless narrative of bravery, trust,
and the eternal quest to tame the wild.
The plains echo with the whispered hope that sometimes the impossible can be conquered. The moon hangs low and silver over the lush, olive-covered hills where Bellerophon's victory over the Chimera has just become legend. You watch Pegasus, now calm and proud, standing beside the hero as he catches his breath, the fiery breath of the beast still faintly glowing in the night air. There's a strange quietness here, almost sacred, as if the land itself acknowledges the triumph of courage and the bond between man and mythic beast. This moment of calm, however, belies a growing tension. Bellerophon's ambitions have begun to stretch beyond the mortal realm.
Emboldened by his success and the favor of the gods, he looks toward Mount Olympus with eyes full of yearning, dreaming of joining the ranks of the divine themselves.
Pegasus, his faithful steed, feels the restless energy of his rider, wings twitching in the cool night. According to legend, Bellerophon attempted to fly Pegasus to the very gates of Olympus, an act of hubris that angered the gods.
Zeus, in his thunderous wrath, sent a gadfly to sting Pegasus, causing the horse to buck wildly. Bellerophon tumbled from the skies, falling back to earth, wounded and humbled, while Pegasus soared away toward the heavens alone.
This story captures a timeless lesson about the limits of mortal ambition and the dangers of overreaching, echoed in countless myths and real-world histories. It's a tale of soaring hope, humbling falls, and the delicate balance between aspiration and respect for the divine order. Historians still debate the symbolic meaning behind Bellerophon's fall. Was it a warning against human pride, or an allegory for the fleeting nature of glory? Either way, Pegasus's solo flight to Olympus marks a key moment, transforming the winged horse from a mere beast of burden into a celestial symbol. As the stars sparkle overhead, you feel the weight of this myth's enduring power, a story about dreams that fly too high, and a horse whose wings carried him beyond mortal bounds, into the realm of goods and eternal inspiration. Dawn breaks softly over the Aegean, spilling golden light onto the rippling sea, where Pegasus is said to have created the famous Hippocrene spring with a single strike of his hoof. Imagine a scene: the radiant horse, muscles gleaming with dew, pouring at the rocky earth atop Mount Helicon.
A surge of crystal clear water gushes forth from the spring, sparkling with life, a magical source that poets and muses have revered since ancient times.
This event cements Pegasus's role not just as a symbol of strength and speed, but also as a bringer of inspiration and creativity.
The Hippocrene spring quickly becomes synonymous with poetic genius, a sacred wellspring from which the arts are said to flow.
Poets, seers, and dreamers flock to its banks, hoping to drink from the source and ignite their own imaginations.
In fact, the name Hippocrene literally means horse's fountain, linking the mythical creature directly to the creative spirit.
The horse's hoof striking the mountain is more than a physical act. It's a metaphor for the sudden spark of inspiration that can strike any artist or thinker at any moment. Interestingly, some ancient writers claimed that the spring's waters could also cure illnesses and grant visions of the future, adding a mystical dimension to Pegasus's influence. This dual nature, as both a powerful warrior's steed and a muse's companion, makes Pegasus a uniquely multifaceted figure in Greek myth. Historians still argue whether the myth of Hippocrene was originally a local legend adopted by the wider Greek pantheon, or a poetic invention designed to link nature's wonders with divine intervention. Either way, the spring's enduring presence in literature and art attests to its deep symbolic resonance. So, as you imagine the shimmering waters and the proud horse's mark upon the earth, consider how this myth bridges the wildness of nature with the refined world of human creativity. Pegasus is no longer just a flying horse. He is a herald of inspiration, forever galloping through the realms of human imagination. Pegasus doesn't just rest by the spring.
His story gallops onward as he becomes the trusted steed of the mighty hero Bellerophon. Picture the young, valiant Bellerophon clad in bronze armor that gleams under the sun, determined to tame the legendary winged horse. This isn't just any horse. Pegasus is wild, fierce, and free. A creature of the gods who answers only to the bravest of souls. Bellerophon's task is daunting, but he receives a divine gift, a golden bridle from the goddess Athena herself.
This magical tool is more than a simple bit.
It's a symbol of divine favor and the link between mortal and divine power.
With it, Bellerophon approaches Pegasus cautiously, whispering prayers and promises. When the horse finally submits, it's not a conquest, but a sacred bond, blending courage and grace.
Their partnership symbolizes the fusion of human heroism and divine assistance, a recurring theme in Greek myth where mortals achieve greatness through the god's support.
Together, they embark on epic quests, their destinies intertwined by fate and flight. Here, Pegasus transforms from a symbol of raw inspiration into a heroic companion, bridging the earthly and the celestial.
Bellerophon rides Pegasus into battles, his movements swift and graceful as the pair confront deadly monsters and daunting challenges.
Their most famous adventure,
slaying the chimera, a fire-breathing beast with lion, goat, and serpent parts, combining brute strength with clever strategy.
This alliance raises fascinating questions historians still debate. Was Pegasus initially a symbol of the uncontrollable forces of nature that heroes must harness, or a representation of transcendent creativity that guides human achievement? Perhaps both, entwined in myth's elegant ambiguity.
Meanwhile, the image of Bellerophon atop Pegasus inspired countless works of art, mosaics, vast paintings, and sculptures, all capturing the perfect moment of unity between man and mythic beast.
The story echoes through the ages, reminding us that even the most divine gifts require wisdom and humility to wield.
As you picture Bellerophon's determined gaze and Pegasus's powerful wings beating the air, remember this isn't just a story about taming a horse, it's about mastering the wild forces within ourselves and soaring beyond earthly limits. As Bellerophon and Pegasus soar through the skies, their story takes a darker turn, one that explores the perils of hubris, the ancient Greek idea that excessive pride or arrogance can lead to a hero's downfall.
Feeling invincible atop his divine steed, Bellerophon's ambition swells. He dreams of joining the gods on Mount Olympus itself, believing that with Pegasus's wings, he can ascend beyond mortal bounds. This moment marks a critical tension between mortal aspiration and divine order.
Bellerophon attempts to fly higher, challenging the heavens, but the gods, unimpressed by this audacity, intervene.
Zeus, king of the gods, sends a gadfly to sting Pegasus, causing the winged horse to buck wildly.
Bellerophon is thrown violently to the earth, his fall a vivid reminder of human limitations.
The imagery here is striking. The brilliant sunlit sky suddenly darkened by the chaos of a wild horse. The hero's plummet stark against the bright heavens. His crash symbolizes the cosmic boundary mortals must respect, a recurring theme in Greek mythology that cautions against overreaching.
Yet Bellerophon's fate remains ambiguous. Some versions say he survived, but was crippled and shunned, wandering the earth in solitude, a tragic figure caught between glory and disgrace. Others hint at a more merciful end, suggesting the gods allowed him to live in obscurity, spared from death, but barred from divine communion.
Historians still argue whether this story reflects a real cultural warning about social order, or a metaphor for the dangers of unchecked ambition. Either way, Bellerophon's tale adds a layer of complexity to Pegasus's legend. He is not just a symbol of inspiration and heroism, but also a reminder of humility and balance. Interestingly, this episode introduces the motif of the falling hero, echoed in later myths and even modern storytelling, where the rise and fall create a full arc of human experience. Meanwhile, Pegasus remains untouched by the fall, continuing his divine duties.
He is often depicted as the pure, unblemished force of creativity and inspiration, soaring free even as his rider suffers. As you imagine Bellerophon's fall and Pegasus's flight, feel the bittersweet mix of triumph and tragedy, an eternal dance between the mortal and the divine, reminding us that even the loftiest dreams have their limits.
After Bellerophon's fall, Pegasus continues his celestial journey, becoming a cherished symbol of poetic inspiration and divine favor.
His legend takes on a new dimension as he is embraced by the Muses, the goddesses of artistic expression. Pegasus's hooves strike the earth, and from the spot where they land springs the Hippocrene Spring on Mount Helicon, a sacred wellspring said to grant poetic inspiration to those who drink from it.
Picture the cool, clear waters bubbling forth amidst a sun-dappled forest, surrounded by vibrant flowers and the soft murmurs of the Muses singing nearby.
This spring becomes a pilgrimage site for poets and artists seeking the creative spark.
Pegasus, with his majestic wings and shimmering coat, stands as the guardian and embodiment of this divine muse-inspired power. The story here highlights the deep connection in Greek mythology between nature, art, and the divine. Pegasus is no longer just a wild stallion, but a bridge between the heavens and the creative spirit of humanity. His role evolves into that of a patron for those who dream and create, making him a timeless emblem for artists across the ages.
Historians still debate the origin of the Hippocrene Spring myth, whether it was an ancient natural spring later imbued with mythological significance, or purely a poetic invention symbolizing inspiration's sudden arrival.
Either way, the tale beautifully intertwines the physical and metaphysical, blending earthly beauty with divine creativity. Interestingly, this myth foreshadows the modern idea of the muse as a source of artistic motivation, a concept still prevalent in creative communities today.
Pegasus's hoofprints mark the transition from heroic adventure to the ethereal realm of artistic influence.
At the same time, Pegasus's continued presence in the heavens reinforces his immortality. He is often depicted among the stars as a constellation, his form lighting up the night sky for ancient stargazers.
This celestial aspect ties Pegasus's story to navigation and guidance, serving as a beacon for dreamers and wanderers alike.
So as you drift further into the story, imagine Pegasus proud, pure, and eternal, his legacy soaring beyond battles and heroes, becoming the enduring spirit of inspiration itself.
It's a reminder that sometimes true greatness lies not in conquest, but in the power to awaken creativity in others.
Pegasus' celestial transformation doesn't end with the Hippocrene Spring.
His story also intertwines with the hero Perseus, adding another layer of mythic complexity.
After Bellerophon's tragic fall, the winged horse is said to have been tamed by the hero Perseus, who rode him into battle against the monstrous sea creature Cetus to rescue the princess Andromeda. This alliance casts Pegasus as a symbol of heroic aid and divine intervention. Imagine the scene, a stormy coastline with dark waves crashing fiercely against jagged cliffs. Perseus, clad in gleaming bronze armor, soars above on Pegasus, his sword raised high and his cloak billowing like a tempest. The winged horse's majestic wings beat against the tumultuous sky as they dive toward the menacing beast below.
The tension is palpable, a moment suspended between danger and hope.
This episode further cements Pegasus as a creature linked not only to art and inspiration, but also to heroism and salvation. His role shifts from Bellerophon's companion to a partner for another mythic champion, demonstrating his versatility within Greek storytelling.
He becomes a divine helper, an otherworldly force assisting mortals in overcoming chaos and darkness.
Historians still argue whether the link between Pegasus and Perseus was a later addition to the mythos, possibly to elevate Perseus' status or to weave more cohesive narratives among popular myths. Some sources depict the winged horse arriving specifically to aid Perseus, while others suggest different interpretations of his involvement.
This myth also reflects a broader theme in Greek culture: the idea that divine creatures often choose or assist heroes who embody virtues like courage and justice.
Pegasus, as a symbol of purity and power, serves as a fitting mount for Perseus, whose quest to save Andromeda blends bravery, love, and divine favor. Interestingly, the image of the hero and winged horse has echoed through art and literature for centuries, inspiring everything from Renaissance paintings to modern fantasy stories. The dynamic duo represents the ultimate fusion of human will and supernatural aid, reminding us of the mythic ideal where mortals transcend their limits through the grace of the gods.
As you close your eyes, picture Pegasus and Perseus cutting through thunderclouds, a celestial pair shining bright against the night, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage and inspiration can carry you above the storm.
As Pegasus' tale nears its twilight, the celestial horse takes on a divine role beyond mortal heroics, ascending to the stars as a constellation.
The ancient Greeks, ever eager to map their myths onto the night sky, immortalized Pegasus as a shimmering figure soaring among the stars. Imagine a clear, cool night where constellations glitter softly above you like tiny lanterns in the velvet darkness, and there, prominently, the great square of Pegasus gleams with a serene glow.
This transformation is symbolic, turning Pegasus from a creature of earthly adventures into an eternal emblem of inspiration and transcendence. The stars map out his powerful wings and strong body, forever reminding us that creativity and heroism reach beyond the physical world and into the heavens. His placement in the sky underscores the connection between earthly endeavors and divine ideals, a bridge from the mundane to the sublime. The story goes that after completing his duties on earth, Pegasus was granted a place among the gods, a celestial reward for his service to heroes and the inspiration he provided. His constellation became a guiding light for sailors and dreamers alike, a symbol that courage and imagination could light the way even in the darkest of nights. It's fascinating how the ancient Greeks intertwined mythology and astronomy, using stories like Pegasus to explain and give personality to the constellations. This practice not only helped preserve their myths, but also connected the cosmos to human experience, blending science with story in a way that still captures our imagination today.
Historians still debate the exact origins of the Pegasus constellation and how closely the myths align with early star charts.
Some suggest that the constellation was inspired by earlier Mesopotamian star lore, adapted and reinterpreted through Greek eyes.
Regardless, its association with Pegasus remains one of the most enduring links between myth and the night sky.
In this quiet cosmic resting place, Pegasus continues to inspire poets, artists, and dreamers, a gentle reminder that the wings of imagination can carry us far beyond the stars we see. As you settle into sleep, imagine Pegasus flying across the galaxy, his wings casting shimmering trails of stardust, guiding your dreams toward realms of infinite possibility.
And here we arrive at the final, soft landing of Pegasus' story and myth that, while ancient, hums quietly with relevance even now.
Pegasus wasn't just a magical winged horse. He was a symbol, a bridge between the earthly and the divine, the practical and the poetic. He reminds us that stories have the power to lift us, that sometimes the most unexpected creatures or moments can spark a revolution in how we think about ourselves and the world. Think about the journey you've traveled with Pegasus, from his dramatic birth amid thunder and tragedy, to the wild chase through mountains and battles, to his final ascension among the stars. Each step reflects something essential about human nature: the hunger for freedom, the drive to create, the courage to face overwhelming odds.
The Greeks, with all their gods and monsters, knew how to wrap these universal truths in stories that still resonate thousands of years later.
What's truly remarkable is how Pegasus embodies contradictions: strength and grace, wildness and control, the earthly and the celestial. These contradictions mirror the complexities of leadership and creativity in any age. Pegasus myth challenges us to find balance, to pursue our ambitions without losing sight of responsibility, to dream wildly yet stay grounded. Historians and mythologists continue to debate the layers of Pegasus' story, from its origins to its cultural significance.
Was Pegasus a symbol of divine inspiration, a metaphor for the unpredictability of fate, or simply a fantastical creature to captivate audiences?
The truth is, perhaps, all of these things at once. Myths thrive in ambiguity, inviting endless interpretation and imagination. As you drift deeper into sleep tonight, let Pegasus' story be a gentle whisper in your mind, a reminder that the line between myth and reality is thin, that every great adventure begins with a leap of faith, and that sometimes the most magical journeys are the ones we take within ourselves. So as you close your eyes, imagine Pegasus spreading his wings above you, carrying you softly through the clouds, soaring beyond the stars, and into a dreamscape where anything is possible. Remember, the power of myth is not just in the telling, but in the dreaming it inspires.
Good night, dreamer. The sky is yours to explore.